Hello there, welcome to Tucking Cash. I hope you are doing well. So today we are going to do another post-game commentary of my recent tournament game. So let's see what we got here. Alright, so straight away, I think you can tell that was a pretty bad starting hand. So a bunch of grassland bird, expensive bird, and really the real problem here is there was nothing to jumpstart my wetland. And after so many games, I found that was one of the most annoying things, or the worst that can happen in the starting hand, was when you don't have a wetland bird, so that your card draw become really slow. In most situations, the gray cat bird could be quite good, but it only shine when you couple it with a great brown power. And really 3 food can be kind of hard to get down in the early game. So really, looks like, yeah, I kept the Downy Woodpecker. Don't disagree with that. The Woodpecker could be good for the first end of round go, and might also help with Ecologist bonus card as well. So my opponent took the Robin, so that was not surprising there. Tuck and draw, birds with tuck and draw power are great, so it was a must pick for my opponent there. The Skimmer, I guess, at least a way to jumpstart my wetland. Again, not ideal because I have to pick up the Skimmer, I have to pick up a fish to play it. So it would take about 3 turns for me to get down a wetland bird, so that's very slow. I think what my backup plan was to pick up the wood stork, and of course my opponent, being quite defensive here, decided to pick the fish from the feeder. So now I don't have the fish to play the Skimmer, and it would take me a lot of turns to refresh that bird feeder. So I ended up have to force down the Skimmer with 3 foods. Again, just so much inefficiency that built into that Skimmer play there. Meanwhile, my opponent played the Oreo, which allowed them to gain food when I activate the forest, so that was quite good. And of course, they also start with the Ruddy Duck. That was a pretty good start to the wetland as well, which allowed them to see more cards. Not particularly exciting draw there. The only thing that was remotely useful, or kind of useful I guess, was the Dipper, which allowed me to refresh the tray and pick up new cards. So it will allow me to dig for more cards and hopefully find some useful bird. But really now the difficult part is, how do I access food? I needed a fish to play the Dipper, but I don't have a forest, and yeah, that was very tricky, and the bird feeder was not great. It doesn't have any fish. So I would say, yeah, going for another dig here, hoping to find something more useful. Long tilted could be good with the star nets, but again, 0 point bird, and I will have to pick up a grain to play it. That was really rough. Really no good decision there, and looks like my gamble with card draw really didn't pay off there. I pick up 2 expensive bird that was not even close to remotely being useful in this game. And again, another painful move. That I have to play a naked woodpecker there without playing a second bird. Yeah, all around not a great start. Meanwhile, my opponent had all bird, like at least one bird set up in each habitat, and they have a tuck and draw bird in the grassland. That was a very good setup. And yep, pick the grub here so that my opponent doesn't get free food, but it also kind of slowed me down because I did not pick up the fish to play my dipper. So that was that. The second round trade here wasn't that bad. You have the Savvy Wobbler that gives you extra card, and then you have the Red Crested Flycatcher that unlock more food in the forest. So yeah, I think I was probably thinking like, do I want to pick up food and play the dipper before I pick up cards? Because I would risk losing some of these good birds. So looks like I ended up going for the draw here. Yeah, I think the Flycatcher was a good pick there. To unlock more food in the forest so that I can spend less turn picking up food. The Savvy is nice, but again, it's a 1-point birds. And even if my opponent play it, I could still benefit from it when they activate the Savvy Wobbler because it gives cards to everyone. So looks like what I really need is a fish. Wait, what was that? Did I just pick up one food? That was definitely an interesting choice there. Again, I was playing defensively. I didn't want to give my opponent I didn't want to activate my opponent Oreo, so I only picked one food. But yeah, I don't know. Seems kind of slow. Because I could definitely afford to ditch one of the card, maybe the Grey Lag Goose for an extra food. So it was debatable whether that was a good move. But the good thing is now with the Flycatcher, I can gain 3 food at a time and still deny my opponent free food from their Oreo by controlling the bird feeders. So I guess in some way I've kind of countered their Oreo a little bit, but it will probably become harder to do so as I'm looking at playing the birds that I want to play as well. For example, here, like I have no choice, but I have to leave them to have a pick on either the grub or the cherry. And I can tell this was a very slow game. My setup was slow, and I spent quite a few turns picking up food. But it was kind of necessary, just because of the first two draw really didn't yield anything useful. And from my experience, that's Wingspan, like that is that significant luck component. And if you have a bad wetland and you couldn't draw anything useful for 2 or 3 times, then it can really go downhill very quickly. But I think in some cases there could be some catch-up mechanism as well. If you can find a bird that, say, allows you to tuck cards and lay eggs, then suddenly you can turn those useless cards into points. So so sometime you can turn the game around when you find the right bird. But again, that's the if, you know, depending on if you can find those birds. So that's quite tricky here. And look like probably want to get the dipper down so that I can get better card draw. Probably, oh yeah, I'm not gonna, looks like I wasn't gonna score any point for the second round go here, so that's quite sad. And my opponent also got the white-throated swift, so yeah, those tucking bird is so powerful. So they have 2 tucking bird, 1 tuck and draw, 1 tuck and lay eggs, and just by those 2 bird, they have a 6-point engine in their grassland. So that really highlight the engine building aspect of Wingspan. When you have the right birds, and you can very easily build up a point scoring engine. And typically grassland would be the most effective habitat to build a point scoring engine, because you lay eggs, you're generating points, they each worth 1 point, and then couple that with tugging, it can really add up very quickly. Yep, since I have good access to food, picking up those big point birds was a no-brainer there. B there was quite nice as well, so that I can start kind of thinking about pivoting to my grassland, so that I can lay eggs and gain food instead of, you know, just gaining food from my forest that I yield no points every time I activate it. Yeah. Looks like if I plan it well, this should be the last time I need to activate my forest. Since I have the bee eater that allow me to gain grub, and then I also have the blue throat that allows me to gain food. But still, I could tell that was already too many turns that I spent activating that forest. And this is what this is going into late round, mid round 3, and I only have 4 birds set up, so definitely not great. And in my opponent case, you know, they play a forest bird. It seems kind of slow in round 3, but they already have a 6-point engine in their grasslands, so they can really afford to, you know, play more birds and then maybe gain food to allow them to play more birds. So because every time they activate the grassland, they can gain 6 points. So their late game was going to be really strong. And yeah, it's gonna be quite hard for me to catch up with that. I guess another thing worth talking about as well, when you know you don't have a good card draw, or you didn't really draw any great birds. I think just from like planning the game as a whole, it makes sense that, you know, you want to look at your cards and decide when you stop drawing cards and just focus on playing the rest of the birds that you have in your hand. I think that was the point here. After I drew that last hand, I think I had a pretty good idea that, you know, it was definitely not worth it to gamble and draw more cards. Like, this 4 cards that I have in hand was probably all the birds that I was gonna play. And looking at this, you know, doesn't look the worst. I have 2 big point birds in hands, and I'm gaining food using the grassland, so I'm generating points when I gain food. So I think I can still bring the score close to being respectable. And really the key here is also thinking about, you know, how many times do I want to activate my blue throat, because I need the food from my blue throat to play the bird, but I'm also giving my opponent free food and enable them to play more bird as well. So it does takes a little bit of planning at this point to think about like what birds I want to play. I think playing the Oreo makes sense. The woodcock makes sense as well because I get grub from my bee eater. I think here really the question is, do I want to play the goldfinch and then use the seed from the goldfinch, maybe play the gray lag goose? So that was a few options there. I think with the ecologists, playing the gray lag goose and the Oreo and another bird in the grassland makes sense. I can gain additional 2 points from the ecologist, and then playing the goldfinch again. It's a 3-point birds. Typically you don't play that in late round 3, but in this case, because of the last end of round goal, it might worth extra points as well, so that might kind of make sense. So yeah, but I guess like another thing to think about is, do I even have enough turn to play 4 birds, because there are only 6 turns left and I can only gain so many food. Like each time I activate my grassland, I can only gain 2 food. And my opponent just played a whooping crane, again totally enabled by the free food that I gave them. So I guess that was exactly what I just talked about. It looks like my opponent was winning the end of round goal here as well, so things definitely doesn't look too good for me in this game so far. Again, debating on probably doing some calculation on what birds I can afford to play and what birds I want to play. Alright. Looks like I decided to play the goldfinch here. And maybe also play the gray lag goose with the extra grain. And yeah, I think the goldfinch could work more than just the 3 points because of the end of round goals. So we'll see if it ended up being worth it at the end. And in the meantime, our opponent played 2 big point birds there, 1 9-point birds, and then a whooping crane that give them extra bonus card. And yeah, the free food that I gave away definitely enabled them playing at least one of those big point birds. So in hindsight, yeah, those are the things that you can't really predict, but things that is worth thinking about, considering when you're playing birds that give away free food. My opponent drew card there in round 5. Typically not ideal, but again, because they have that white-throated swift that allows them to tuck cards and lay eggs, so I'm pretty sure that was quite worth it for them, even though they have to draw a card in round 4. Yep, 3 turn laying eggs for them was at least 18 points there, because each point was 6 points activations. And looks like I might not have enough food to play both the Oreo and the gray lag goose. So that was definitely some miscalculation there. I ended up having some extra food that I did not need, while in the meantime I was giving my opponent food that enabled them to play big point birds. So yeah, I would say miscalculation. But even without those miscalculation, I don't think the game would have been close. And yeah, that was it. 10 points different. I would say I wasn't mad at 75 points, given how the starting hand was kind of terrible, and then the beginning was really slow to set up the board. And I think this is one of those games that, you know, you really just have to make the most out of what you drew. And yeah, 70 point was it. And yeah, if I did a little bit more calculation, maybe I would have like bring the score closer without giving my opponent free food. But anyway, that was the game. I hope you still enjoy this game, even though it was not a high scoring game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.